Hi everyone, this is Doug Zetaros for Game Shampoo. Doing something a little different today. As you can see, I'm not on camera. So, that different thing is I got a couple things to talk about. I've made an appearance on a friend's podcast, and a friend of mine for a very long time has been doing streams, and she's making a really big push. I've got this platform, however small it is, and frankly I want to help both of us. So, sit back, relax, we got some things to talk about. So, the first thing we will talk about is the podcast. Simply called The Last Podcast You'd Want. It's run by my friend Steve. Steve and I have known each other since high school, which at this point is around 20 years. Now, I invited him to my wedding, I got invited to his wedding. Well, we've met each other's wives. I've shared many cat and dog, and in my case rabbit photos, and we try and hang out as much as we can, but since we live on opposite ends of the state, that can be a little hard. Now, the last podcast you'd want is all about movies. He began the whole thing just going through the questions that he was planning to put toward his guest, so we could all get a sense of what he'd be asking and who he is. He's had a number of his friends on across the almost year that he's been doing this podcast. However, he's also gotten a couple actors, performers, and writers to show up on the podcast as well. Some of the bigger names to get their own episode would be Andrew Cassese, best known for being in the films Revenge of the Nerds. Next is Tony Ganios, famed of Porky's. The late Robert Forster was on this podcast earlier this year before his passing. He's also gotten Amy Miller to show up, chat a bit, as well as Ryan Alpert, a writer for the WWE. For those film buffs who love the 80s movies, he had Diane Franklin on who is, we'd all remember her best from Bill and Ted's Excellent and Bogus Adventure. Steve's also done a couple interviews where he's in a more party situation or at a convention. He'll just find someone and talk with them for just a few minutes, ask him a couple of the questions, and go from there. He'll also have friends on, and they'll run down their top X of movies. So far we've gotten the X-Men movies, the Marvel, as well as the Batman movies, or at least a number of theatrical release Batman movies. Honestly, you can tell that everyone there is having a great time. Steve is making sure to put his guests at ease. There are occasions where he does fanboy a bit, but I can't blame him. I've met a number of people I admire at conventions, and I've interviewed them. It is really something else, especially the first couple times. Honestly, it never gets any easier. Now, I will say, unlike the content I post here for Game Shampoo with the Let's Plays, I curse. And Steve does a fair bit of that himself when you're listening to these episodes. If you're easily offended by language, don't. I will say that straight up, don't. If you like hearing people just wax on about movies, why they like them, what movies brings them back to their childhood, who's their favorite director, preferred genre, what's a movie you could watch every day? I don't mind saying this, mostly because it did literally worm its way into my head and my heart in that way, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This is a movie that's got some history between Steve and I. I'm not giving away any details here. If you want to find that out, you'll just need to listen to the episode. That comes out this Thursday the 14th. I've been listening just about as long as I've known. It only took me about a month to hop on and really listen to it. The first couple episodes of the podcast, they're short, 5 to 7 minutes, and it's really just Steve, like I said, letting us getting to know him. And they're a lot of fun to listen to because of that. You get an idea of where things can go. I can also say he's really good about managing spoilers for more recent content. So if they're going to talk about what happens in a more recent film, they'll at least go, hey, here's where it's going, give you a chance to skip around. I honestly can recommend a couple of the episodes as well. If you're looking for one that's a little nonsensical but a lot of fun, I recommend Fatal Attraction with Dark Usagi. Any of the episodes that have the guests that I named a little earlier, I can also recommend those. It's really fun getting to hear like famed actors and actresses talk about, these movies which have impacted them, probably influenced their craft a little, or just, stuff they enjoy. I can also recommend any of the episodes where Steve and one of his friends are talking simply about movies. The list that I mentioned can be a lot of fun. The Marvel one is about an hour, and it's just like those two going back and forth talking about why they like the movies, why they put them in their spot, what really put them there, and that's just a lot of fun to listen to. Steve is very encouraging of people to respond to The Last Podcast You Want through their social media, which is included here down in the description. So, yeah, seriously, give it a good listen to. There's a lot to enjoy. I will admit the quality can sometimes be kind of not like amazing, but no, you're not really losing any particular words. You can still make out what's being said, and it's just a lot of fun to give a go to. Okay, next we come to a streamer. Not something I've talked about before. I've talked about podcasts before, but not streaming. So, my friend goes by Koi Joy. She does a mix of doing video games and streaming art. Right now, she, along with her husband, are playing Elder Scrolls Online and Borderlands. Borderlands 1 is a lot of fun to play. It is unique in that all the guns actually have their individual stats, so the more you use a particular kind of gun, the better your character gets at using that kind of gun. Elder Scrolls Online, I can say it's a lot of fun. I know a great many people who enjoy it. After covering it, working working a 50 to 60 hour week for 2 months, I'm burned out and have been burned out on it for a very long time. But, I talk with Koi Joy and her husband about actually playing it. They're loving it. That's all I need. I've got my opinion. They are all good. That's all I really need. But gaming's not the only thing that Koi Joy is doing on Twitch. So, her big project right now is actually a dinosaur-themed tarot deck. And she's putting a lot of effort into doing research to make sure that the dinosaur is matching as well as can be to the elements of the tarot card itself. So, going by her present schedule, she's doing art Saturday evenings, 8:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. She's also streaming the art Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to catch her and her husband playing the Elder Scrolls Online, that's Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 8:30 p.m. to 11 p.m., again, Pacific Standard Time. And if you want to see them playing the Borderlands, that is Wednesdays, same time slot. Now, I've talked about her doing art. I've talked a little about the gaming. Now, art does actually come with its own little thing, and that is her Instagram. If you want to just see the art, which is looking really cool, well, you can follow her on Instagram at streamer_koi_joy. Pretty easy, simple to remember, and it's something I definitely recommend. For the Dinosaur Tarot, she's been working with line art and watercolor. And watercolor is an amazing medium to be working in. And having gotten to see some of these both digitally through her Instagram, as well as, I'll just be chilling at their place and she'll show us some of the art, and it's honestly really good both ways. Now, a little more on the Tarot project. She's told me that so far she's finished the Major Arcana as well as the Wand suit. She realized that, dinosaurs work really well for this particular venture. She's looking at the etymology of the names, most of which are kind of literal when you actually look into them. That part's really funny. So if possible, I really do recommend look up your favorite dinosaur. See what the name genuinely translates to, because it works very well with the way Tarot is meant to be read. You want to look at a lot of different attributes to figure out what really fits to what suit and what card. And that is exactly why dinosaurs can actually make it really interesting and to look through a Tarot deck. Now, most people are going to want to kind of have their own little thing anyways. I can say years and years ago, I did a complete write-up on this stuff. It's a lot of work. Please, support this endeavor of hers. She's streaming this on Saturday and Sunday at the times I said. If you want a morning stream, check her out Sunday. If you want an evening stream, pretty much any day of the week. Now, she's got a really good team helping her out, a lot of volunteer mods, but she's also playing mod in quite a few places herself. She's got a wonderful community built up, and it just keeps growing. I'm sincerely hoping I can do a little to just help, push her along, get her to those next couple ranks. She has a lot of fun designing different emoji for her channel, as well as helping others out much in the same way. So if you've been looking for someone to subscribe to, that Small is very active within their own chat around what they're doing. I heavily recommend Koi Joy. She and her husband both have a great sense of humor, and you can bet around, just dealing with the puzzles games can throw you at, and the challenges that the Borderlands presents just in general. Plus, there's a lot of running around, so hey, they get plenty of chance to talk. Now, very much go subscribe. I'll let you check out their archives. Koi Joy's beaten a number of games on Twitch. Yeah, within her archives, you'll be able to find footage of her beating Portal, Portal 2, Fallout 76, The Stanley Parable, Diablo 3, Ori and the Blind Forest, Never Alone, and West of Loathing. All these are really fun games. I've heard lots of good stuff. If I haven't, beat them myself. There's just 3 or 4. But yeah, I can recommend any of the games that she's been playing, has beaten. Alright, well, I've had a lot to say about both Koi Joy, our streamer, as well as the last podcast you'd want. I do personally recommend both of them. I've tuned in to a number of her streams. I've listened to all the episodes of the last podcast you'd want. Like I said, on the 14th, I'll be the guest. If you wanted their social media information, please just look in the description of the video. You'll find it right there. I highly recommend subscribing to both, but in the meantime, well, that's all I gotta say for now. There's been a lot of exploring in the background, footage from Super Metroid Phazon, If you like that, the link to the ROM hack itself is down below. But that's all I've got to say for now. Please let me know what you thought about this episode. It's always fun to try something different. Stretches different muscles, doing different things. And I was doing some very different stuff here. As always, this has been Doug Rose. Thank you very much for watching this. We'll see you tomorrow with some Elder Scrolls goodness. Gonna love that Skyrim.